Welcome back to the Vitera vlogs. This is part 10 of a series covering my team's progression in the new server Vitera. This video will cover from level 571 to 640, which took us about 2 months. On the previous episode, we were hunting in Fire Library, and then our next plan of action was to start the Soulware quest. I covered separately that Soulware run, how we did the bosses, and to be more specific in our raw format. But what I was planning on doing additionally was a sort of bloopers video, because even though we didn't fail the bosses, there was a lot of fails during the access to them. Unfortunately, after a few months of uploading the videos of the bosses, I deleted everything Soulware related, forgetting about some of the videos that were going to be used for this, so I'm just gonna tell you about some of these moments with the screenshots instead. The first problem came during the ebb and flow access. This is quite common as the creatures here have an ability called Fear, which makes you run away from them without control over your character movement, and with restrictions of using spells, including heals, so a lot of people struggle with that. For us, we had 3 experienced players with not only the quest, but also the Fear mechanic, but the other 2 were doing it for the first time, and instantly, upon arriving at the platform where the access takes place, one of them walked down the hall. We went down with him to try and say this, but these rooms have a lot of creatures right away, and for level 500s can be too much. My RP and MS, who know about the spell mechanics, said we had time to lead through the door, because at the time the water was down and it was possible to do so. However, I thought it was the opposite and I made the call to stay. We tried to fight our way through and that didn't work, as the druid that had fallen in first died pretty quick. We continued to hold on as much as we could, then changed plans where we will trap ourselves with walls while luring creatures away, and this actually worked somehow. And once the water went down, we ran back to the entrance, and unfortunately both the druid and RP ended up dying on the way out after having survived all of that. We came back after that and succeeded, so the quest continued on, only to find another struggle on the next boss, which is on the Furious Crater. Upon going down to the second floor, things got out of control quick, resulting in the ED and MS dying, with me dying as well while running away. Then after that, since most of the creatures got lured away while our run out, we were able to complete the access and the boss. And for the final access on the Rotten Wasteland, we asked for help from everyone we could, gathering 5 people to help, and even that wasn't enough to avoid deaths, as I was the first one to fall during one of the clearings. I was the only one to die, so I got blessings and came back, to once again face difficulty with one clear going out of control and having to separate from everyone as I lured creatures away so they could go upstairs, and then upon running back to get up myself, I nearly died again. But hey, nobody died that time, so we were able to complete it and continue with the bosses, which we succeeded and got our rewards. Very unfortunate that I lost these recordings. My team to this day is still upset that we didn't get a clip for the ebb and flow part, but I found out too late to recover them. After all my deaths from Soulware, I went down to 572, and we continue on with the hunts, starting with yet again another death right away, with one close call the next day, and one more because why not. We continued to hunt the Fire Library despite the hard difficulty for another week, up until I got 584, but of course with more close calls in between, but no deaths, and this is when we decided enough is enough. We avoided this long enough, it's time to move on, and so we finally decided to start hunting Isaaabi. We all knew it was the best option, it would be better XP and easier hunts. This was no secret for us at all, especially with me already hunting here some days with other teams. But as I have said before, both my RP and MS had hunted this spawn for years, literally years, and they really tried to avoid adding more months to that, which is why we waited this long. But instantly upon our first hunt, we were doing over 8kk roll, and that just makes our previous hunts meaningless. All the deaths we had hunting a hard spawn for the fun of it and the challenge with no rewards is unfortunate, but it is quite common to happen, and you will think we will learn from this and stick to Isaaabi for 200 levels, but nope. The next day we were already trying out a different spawn, and this was on Ingle -3. I don't remember why we did this. Isaaabi might have been taken at the time and we just went to Ingle instead to try it out. And it went alright, similar style of hunting to Isaaabi, but with harder difficulty. Best we could do was over 6kk raw at the time, so we didn't commit too hard. Instead continued to do Isaaabi for another week, and getting level 600 in the process. And then we tried Ingle again with similar results as before, so we continued to switch between Isaaabi for around 8kk and Ingle for 6kk, based on what was available. I will continue to do some hunts in between, like hunts for profit on Warzone 8, but also since we were done with the Soulware quest, now it was possible to farm a boss too. and we will do that sometimes. Rotten Boss is the best one to do that, and even with a team of 500s, it's quite easy once you get better at clearing the axes. This was a nice addition to the rotation that was also quite fun to do. Then about 2 weeks later, at level 613, and having done the same routine for a while, the Orcs Overfest ended, and with that the start of the bonus experience for demon creatures. And since we had all hunted Plague Seal a while back, we went back with full charms and more levels. This time with the bonus active, our experience was similar to that of Isaaabi, sitting at around 7.6kk raw. That was pretty good for us, on top of good profit, so we hunted that weekend there with a different sorcerer, since mine doesn't play on weekends. And then around this time, the other team I will fill in sometimes was falling apart, so the druid had more free time, for which I will join him for dual hunts to farm some more Warzone 8 hunts and some true Asuras as well. But we thought about it, since he does speak English and can communicate with us, we decided to recruit him and make our party a 5-man. He was fine with it since his team was gone, and it was a good way to do the Ingle charm with us, and with 5 people it got more manageable. It came with the cost of less experience to about 7kk on Isaaabi and 6kk on Ingle, but that was fine, so we continued doing both hunts with him. And since he also had a sorcerer, that meant we could hunt on the weekends with him as well, and that was some extra experience hunts there, which we decided to do on Ice Library. This time with more levels and skills, we got the experience up to 7.5kk, which was pretty high in my opinion. Next up, we started thinking, if we are not making high experience, why don't we do something dumb instead? And with that, we ended up moving to the Rotten Wasteland. At some point, this would have been a smart decision with a 5-man party, but with the current state of software in general, none of the spawns are good for low levels. But for the sake of doing something different, we still did it. The experience was barely on the 5kk raw, and on the first day of hunting, I technically died, but Gift of Life proc, so it doesn't count. So for the next 3 weeks, we continued to hunt here, doing bad experience, but at least doing something different and hard. And yes, it is still very hard with 2 druids at this level. I had so many close calls and also a few actual deaths in between, and it wasn't until level 640 that we finally move on to another spawn. But that will be covered in the next part of the series, so consider subscribing if you like the content so far. For this part 10, I went from level 571 to 640 in a bit under 2 months of time. Keep in mind, most of this time, we were not making good experience and also died 5 times. So for sure, not the ideal progression, but that's also part of the game. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to the Guild Causality from Pulsera, to Nightstar and to Nahiro for supporting the channel further. And with that, hope to see you again on the next one.